Hello everyone! This video will develop the application of the trial approach based on three basic frames to the novel Little Women by Louisa Alcott, taking into account some aspects such as the contextual framework, literary movement, social context, literary genre, cultural background, and religious context. Okay, to start, Louisa Alcott was born on November 29, 1832 in Germantown, Pennsylvania. She is the second of four daughters of Amos Barton and Abigail Alcott. Her mother, known as Ada, was from a distinguished Boston family. Her father was an educator and reformer, whose controversial and often unpopular teaching philosophies kept him from a steady employment in the family, which she called the pathetic family, continually on the edge of poverty. Alcott wrote her first stories at age 15 during what she called her sentimental period. As a teenager, she pursued many dramatic and literary endeavors, producing and acting in family theatricals, creating a series of tales which she called Flower Fables, and founding a family newspaper called Oliver Leaf in 1849. The same year, she wrote her first novel called The Inheritance, which is not published until 1996. Louisa's father didn't earn sufficient income to support the family, so Alcott, her mother, and sisters worked. Abba, as one of the nation's first social workers, the girls at Simon and Titian. During the American Civil War, Louisa moved to Washington, D.C. to work as a Union Army nurse until the war with life at college was short. Always active in the suffrage movement, in 1879, Alcott became the first woman to vote in Concord. Louisa's health declined greatly during this period due to the lingering effects of mercury in the treatment she had received for typhoid fever during the Civil War. As she was too weak to write extensively, Louisa published her children's story collections until her death on March 6, 1888, 2 days after the death of her father. Now, to talk about the social, literary, historical, and cultural context to which this novel belongs to, it is important to say that Little Women is a novel originally intended for children and especially a young female audience in the 19th century. Louisa May Alcott was greatly influenced by the transcendentalists of her time, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, both of whom she idealized. Louisa and transcendentalist writers highly considered that humans should pay more attention to their inner beings rather than dwell on superficial ways of living. Just as it is presented in her novel Little Women, making it clear through the book that wealth is not a key to happiness. The American society of the 19th century, America, changed and evolved significantly during this particular century, and Louisa's work mirrored these new movements. Louisa's writing will not only aim to change this changing society, she also achieved to offer her contemporary readers warmth, love, comfort through her writings during these harsh times. As the American society grew and changed, so did the households. So, the American 18th century family often consisted of a man working outside the home, while the woman took care of the house and the family. Women were victims of this patriarchal society, in which they were entirely dependent upon their father or husband. After the Civil War, the National Women's Suffrage Association was formed in 1869. They strongly opposed and reacted against the 15th Amendment, as it simply ignored women. Later, this group would be known as the National American Women's Suffrage. The granting right to vote was not granted to women until 1920, with the passage of the 19th Amendment. However, prior to the 19th Amendment, women's suffrage had been granted in some states during the 19th century. The only occupation which was respected and truly a possibility was teaching for women. However, true independence was still very difficult to obtain. Indeed, to reject marriage and domestic life was complicated in a patriarchal society, which considered family as the appropriate foundation of a moral life for women. The British novel was important for education of women, of American women. Indeed, the transatlantic literary canon defined an American woman's education. There was no international copyright law, so British literature was easily available. The average middle-class women were familiar with the canonical and religious British literature. Women's reading was quite elaborate, including theology, philosophy, poetry, and novels. Female academies were founded during the 19th century, but literary societies had been present since the American Revolution. In the first chapter, Plain Pilgrims, refers to the well-known Christian allegory Pilgrim's Progress from this world to that which is to come by John Bennett. He was an English writer and preacher best remembered as the author of the religious allegory The Pilgrim's Progress. However, Louisa used Bunyan's motif twice in the first chapter. As I previously said, the girls were familiarized with the story from very early on, for they used to play Pilgrim's Progress when they were little things. That's how it is said in chapter 1, page 14. Amy is commented on how she would still like to play it, but kind of she is too old for such childlike games. Unconsciously, she introduces the idea of playing pilgrims as they all recognize their burdens. Mommy lectures that it is never too late to play this game, as it is a play we all play all the time in one way or another, also stated in chapter 1, page 15. Okay, now, reading this novel was, to be honest, one of the most delightful readings I've made. During the whole reading, I really loved her cynicism about women's traditional roles and the most impossible standards to which many women hold themselves in, trying to adjust to a new prescribed role, especially evidenced in chapter 38, page 682, about Meg and her husband after the birth of their twins and all that parental issue. But what I really loved was especially in chapter 42, page 764, and it said, "What could be harder for a restless, ambitious girl than to give up her own hopes, plans, and desires and cheerfully live for others?" That's what it says in chapter 42, page 764. Because here, the writer is so reflected in the main character, well, for me, Jo. As it was previously mentioned, she was made such many sacrifices in her own life, just as Jo's personality. And it was nice to find out that many people think in that way too. For example, here is Thomas Wentworth in 1888. He stated this: "She had delight of sending sunshine into a myriad of scattered homes, and of teaching many young girls doubtless the way to a more generous and noble life." It is really nice finding people admitting and admiring at the same time such a good work and writing. Henry James in 1875 also made a comment about her novel by saying this: "She had dealt with social questions of the child world, and like Thackeray and Trollope, she is a satirist. She's extremely clever and we believe vastly popular with infant readers." Very interesting too. Okay, now about the book, it explores such timeless themes as love, death, war, peace, conflict between personal ambition and family responsibilities. The burdens are different for each of the girls. They must overcome their personal flaws. Meg must deal with her vanity, Jo with her dreadful temper, Beth must defeat her shyness, and Little Amy with her selfishness. They must conquer their own flaws in order to live up their parents' expectations as wives, mothers, and as citizens. Family love is another of the themes shown in the novel. Well, all members of the family as well as the adoptive family de Lawrences are an important part of the emphasis on closeness and caring. Because the girls do love each other, they sometimes take each other for granted and excuse small slights given and taken. The theme of growing up goes hand in hand with understanding wealth, appreciating what they have, and finding the value in each other. Two of the characters, Meg and Beth, don't change much by the end of the novel, but Jo and Amy both adjust their priorities, learn to be considerate to others, and discover ways to share their possessions and their individual talent. Throughout the history, it is made clear that for Meg and Amy, this newly impoverished state of affairs is much more painful, and they truly suffer humiliation, whereas Jo is able to take advantage out of this condition. It encourages her to write and actually publish her story so as to finance the family. Okay, here Amy suffers from from her new class condition, as is made clear in the chapter called Amy's Ballet of Emulation. Here, Amy symbolizes how easily a woman's desires for such admiration can become tragic, as is the case in this chapter. The role of Amy's rhymes gets out and Amy is punished. This punish is described as a dreadful ordeal little Amy has undergone. Meg also suffers from class distinction, as it is made clear in chapter called Meg Goes to Vanity Fair. Okay, now, literary devices serve as means to essay words in colorful expression order. The book Little Women makes use of literary devices throughout the book. For example, personification is used in this passage found in chapter 2, page 21. And the winter sunshine prayed in to touch their bright heads and serious faces with a Christmas greeting. The words give intent to demonstrate that the winter sunshine is able to move by creeping and have a voice with which to extend a greeting, human characteristics. Another is Jo was very tall, thin, and reminded one of Alcott, for she seemed to know what to do with her long limbs, which were very much in her way. Chapter 1, page 2. In describing the character of Jo, the author uses a metaphor. A metaphor is the comparison of two dissimilar things that share similar characteristics. Here, Alcott is compared to young girl to Alcott. The last one, it says, Alcott used an allusion, which is the reference to a famous person, place, quotation. It's found in chapter 2, page 26. The original quote is from the Bible in Mark 12:31, and it says, "Love your neighbor as yourself." And in the book, Meg delivers allusion to this familiar verse by saying this: "That's loving our neighbor better than ourselves and alike." Okay, in conclusion, Louisa is successful as her novel does advocate the possibility of being more than just a wife to a woman, for she emphasizes the importance of education and career opportunities for women. Indeed, the novel strongly celebrates the individuality for young girls, as its main focus lies on the female education and the process of becoming a woman. This analysis follows the path proposed in the document as a video class report by McKinney, Danny, Treasure Island Digital